Hello, welcome to Regular Achievers Education Unlimited, presenting real tutors who trusted support for brain-friendly hybrid learning. Today, we will be looking at GCSE poetry, a comparison between London and Emigrees. This is a grade 9 comparison for learners seeking to write GCSE exams. Now, by the end of this tutorial, you should be able to understand the rich context, theme, and poetic method of both London and the Emigrees, analyze how each poet uses language, forms, and structure to present despair versus hope, construct a grade 9 comparative response using the Peter frame, work with embedded quote, understand exactly what AQA examiner rewards and what makes the difference between grade 7 and grade 9. Now let's see the context and background, key theme and method. London, written by William Blake in 1794. William Blake is a visionary poet, artist, and radical thinker. He published London in Songs of Experience, the Dark Comparison of Song of Innocence. London is set in Industrial Revolution London, where child labor, poverty, disease, and prostitution were rife. Blake was a fierce critic of the monarchy, the church, and the ruling class. He uses chattered to attack the commodification of even nature, that's the themes by capitalism. He also uses mind forge manacles as oppression. That oppression is internalized, and victim becomes complicit in their own chains. Oh, all right. So for the theme and the method, for theme, trapped desire. The city is a prison. No escape is possible or imagined. Institutional oppression, the church, state, and the monarchy all complicit. Then for the method, he uses forms for regular quatrains with ABAB rhymes, which shows a rigid structure that enacts entrapments. Then he uses anaphora, that is in every suffering is total and inescapable, universal, and so. And for sensory language, he uses cries, uses sighs, curses, and then the city is a soundscape of agony. The harlot in the final stanza portrays the future is already affected. A despair is cyclical. All right, now for Emigrees by Carol Remens, is written by a British poet. That is who Carol Remen is. Now, Carol Remen is known for complex emotional landscape, and this poem is inspired by real exile, refugees, and displaced people, particularly those from Eastern Europe and the Mid East. Now, the speaker, who is the poet, was exiled as a child. They carried a remembered city that shines in memory even as the real city is destroyed. Okay, so it's written in the past Cold War era where many people were displaced by conflict and political oppression. The city is never named, suggesting that the experience is universal for all exiles and refugees. Now, Rumen explores how memory and imagination can act can be an act of resistance against oppression. For key theme, we have stubborn hope. Even under oppression, memories preserves a luminous, defiant identity. We have a displacement and belonging. Home is carried internally, not just geographically. Then for method, we have forms. He uses three unequal stanza, a flowing free verse, which reflects the fluidity of memory versus a rigid oppression. He also used light imagery throughout, like sunshine or sunlight, white street, shining, hope is literally illumination. He used personification of the city where he says the city, it holds and takes my hand home as a loving relationship. Now, the final image he used was my shadow falls as evidence of sunlight even in darkness. Hope casts a shade. All right, now for a comparison side by side between the two poems, we're going to be comparing for these features, central feelings, city relationship forms, dominant scenes, key device tone, and then their shared ideas. Now, for London, for central feelings, we have trapped desires where there is no escape imaginable. Why for emigres, we have stubborn hope, memory resists oppression. City, London, it was named, it was specific, inescapable reality. Why for emigres, it wasn't named, which suggests that it is universal exile experience. Then for relationship, the city oppresses and imprisons the speaker, while for emigres, the city loves and sustains the speaker's identity. Forms for London, Blake uses four rigid quatrains, structure that mirrors entrapment, while for emigres, he uses free on equal stanza, free verses, which suggest fluidity or fluid resistance. Then for dominant scene, we have sounds like cry, sighs, curses, wailing, which is auditory despair. While for London, we have sights, which as sunlight, white, white sunlight, whitenings, shining, which is a visual. Then for key device, we have anaphora in every was used. Oppression is total and universal. Why for emigres we have personification, the city personified, the city holds, takes my hands, and then for tone we have Blake angry, political, condemning. Why for emigres we have tender, defiant, luminiously nostalgic. Now, both texts explore how political power controls lives. Botes uses the city as a metaphor for a broader condition. Now, for questions, GCSE questions. Let's see this. Compare how Poet presents the effect of living under oppression in London by William Blake and one other poems from the Power and Conflict cluster. Now, we have three steps to consider in decoding how to answer this question. For the first one, you have to underline effect of oppression. The second one, we have used emigres to compare this text already, and this is why emigree is a perfect pair. Now, for the next one, we have to write our thesis first. Now, for the first step, underline effects of oppression, not just what is oppression, but what it does to people. Blake internalized chain, romance, exile, but preserved identity. Both are effects which polars opposites ones. Now we have both. For the second step, we have both explore oppression oppressive power, a Blake speaker have no agency while women speaker resist. The contrast of despair versus hope is itself the argument you will analyze. Now, for your thesis, before writing, draft one sentence like this. Blake presents oppression as X, while women present oppression as Y. Okay, every paragraph must prove this. Write it at the top of your plan. All right, so let's see the framework for a Peter, response. We have points, evidence, techniques, effects, and then relating back to the question. Now, for the points, make a direct comparison open statement that announce or that answers the question. Use while, whereas, both, put, never just describe, but try as much as possible to give points. Now, for example, Blake and Raymond both explore how political oppression shapes identity. Yet, while Blake's speaker is consumed by inescapable despair, Raymond's Emigre response Emigree responds with tenacious, luminous resistance. Then for evidence, embodied short quote for both poems. Quotes of 3 to 8 words scores higher than long block quotes. Integrate them into your sentence. For example, might forge Manacles by Blake versus Light Sunlight of Color A Color of Light by Women. Now for techniques, name the exact techniques and explain how it creates meaning, not just what it is. For example, Blake's compound now for a mind forge suggests oppression is psychological, not merely physical, remains paradoxical. Sunlight, which is the color of a lie, explores or exposes how hope persists, I beg your pardon, even when reality is darkened. Okay, then for effects, this is what you do. Analyze the effect on the reader and connect to the poet's purpose or historical context. For example, the reader feels the claustrophobic of self-imposed chain. Blake implicates society itself. Okay, that was what he did, implicating the church, implicating criticizing the church, criticizing the rich class, while Roman's reader feels the emotional cost of exile. Beauty is real, yet taints with lust. Now let's read it back to the question. For example, this is what you do, where Blake uses structural form to enact imprisonment. Romance uses free verse to suggest freedom. Alternatively, one could argue that both poets shows the city as a living emotional force, one destructive while the other one is redemptive. All right, let's see how to write a structural paragraph. Okay, I think we've done that already. Yeah, we've done that already. So let's see what is expected from the AQA examiner. Now, to get a grade 9, you have to show perspective and you have to be convincing. This is what you do. Nuance comparison, comparative analysis of language, forms and structure. Judiciously use your quotes. Okay, judiciously embed your quotes into your text. Context must be woven seamlessly into argument. Explore ambiguity, ambiguity Gite, I beg your pardon. And now alternatively, you use that alternative. Now interpretation offers good points. Compelling argument structures should be structured throughout. Now, for grade 7 to grade 9, you must show thoughtfulness and your points must be clear. Clear, clear, experience, explained comparison of method. You must do that. Relative quotes must be shown. Then sometimes slightly long language. When you do that, you get a grade 9. Now, effect on the reader when you analyze that, you mention context occasionally, and then you integrate them into your text. Then some moments of description also. You earn a grade 7 to 6. Now for grade 5, when you just explain some comparison attempts, okay, when you just give comparison attempts, but then you do not sustain it. Then when you give quotes that are too long, you use basic language, all right, then context, reference at the start. Okay, so when you do all of these, you earn a grade 5 to 4. Now for grade 3 to 1, just when you do a simple and descriptive narrative or response, mostly you just describe, retell the poem, just minimal comparison, then you paraphrase quotes, and then you get this 3 2 1 grade. And we want to actually get the highest grade. That is, we want to show perspective, and then we want to be convincing. Now let's see some modern response for this. For a language analysis, annotated, there are color codes for this. I want you to see below and see the color codes I read. Both Blake and Rumens explored how oppressive power infiltrates the inner life of the individual, yet their speakers respond with a strikingly opposite emotional orientation. Now let's go to techniques. Why Blake compound now mind forged manacle is his most devastating coinage. The word forged suggests manufactured. Alright, Blake's compound now mind forged manacle is his most devastating coinage. The word forged suggests both manufactured and forgery. The chains the oppression have, okay, now paradoxically made for themselves through internalized submission. The alternative sounds are heavy, metallic, inescapable. By contrast, Rumen uses personification to present the city as an active, loving agent. It takes my hand, a gesture of tender protection that defies the violence of exile. Where Blake's oppressed have no agency whatsoever, Rumen's speaker retains an interior city that authority cannot reach. Alternatively, one could argue that Rumen's personification reveals the fragility of hope. It depends on a memory, not a reality. Now we can see the keys on the screen. We have technical names written in blue, embedded quotes written in white, and then the effects. Okay, Okay, now let's see structures and forms. All right. Now, structural choice of both poets are themselves arguments about power. Blake's four rigid quatrains, each with a regular ABAB rhyme scheme, physically enact the poem's central claim. Life in London offers no diversion, no escape, no variation. The relentless regularity of form is the mind forge manacle. Conversely, romance free on equal standards of flowing verses create a form that breaths and shifts like memory itself. Okay, it breathes and shifts like memory itself, resisting any imposed pattern, just as her speaker's internal life resists the authority that has exiled her body. Then, crucially, Blake ends with the image of the newborn infant already infected by the city, a cyclic structure of despair, while Remain ends with my shadow falls as evidence of light. A final image is paradoxical, triumphant. Structure for both poets is not decoration but argument. Now we have why this ends a grade 9. Okay, so these are all the reason why it ends a grade 9. All right, let's see all the texts that, all the poems that it can be compared to. Now we have Ozymandias, we have Check Out My History, we have Remains, we have Kamikaze, we have Preludes, we have Tissue. You can compare London to all these apart from Emigrees. All right, now I want you to pause and check these questions. There are 5 questions. Pause and check, ask yourself, and see if you have really been following the lesson. All right, you can pause the video and see. Then for our exit tickets today, write one full Peter comparison paragraph, and this is a question. Compare how Blake and Remain present how power affects individual. Write a full grade 9 paragraph using Peter. Aim at 8 to 10 sentences. Include one alternative reading. Alternatively, one could argue. So that is how you can start it or embed it in your writing. Then another one is self-relate your confidence. Embed short quotes fluently. Name and analyze techniques. Compare methods. Link forms and structure to meaning, offer alternative interpretation. Then the next is reflection. All right, 3 things you now know about the poems. 2 comparison points you will definitely use in an exam. 1 thing you're still unsure about. Okay, so I want to leave this with you today. In every cry of a man, that is a quote from William Blake in London, and my shadow falls as evidence of sunlight by Corey Rumen in Emigrees. Now, Blake's form argument, regular structure, inescapable entrapment, and Rumen's free verse, resistant, fluid form, identify that cannot be caged, or identity, I beg your pardon, that cannot be changed. Now, compare methods, not just theme, form, structure, voice, imagery. Offer one alternative read per essay. that your grade 9 moves, and then both both believe in the power of the word. And now, so you do. With this, we've come to the end of the lesson for today. Thank you for watching. Now, don't forget to comment and subscribe to Regular Achievers Educational Limited for more of these videos. See you soon. Bye.